There are two types of fear. One is a good type. One is natural. One is helpful. It's that 15 seconds of your instincts telling you to move out of the way of the speeding car, thereby saving your life and you don't end up as roadkill. That's the good kind. That's all well and wonderful, and that's not the kind we're going to be talking about today. We're going to be talking about the societal kind, the kind that's been indoctrinated into you by a control freak society and used as a weapon against you. The kind that is not genetic, that is not instinctual, but rather is an ingrained belief system to create a sense of collective Stockholm syndrome so that it's easier for fashion industries to sell you beauty products because you think you're broken and you need to be fixed, and easier for all other forms of industry to market you and make you good little consumers.
That was some crazy shit. The way they were lengthening her legs, shaving off her stomach, making her eyes so big, that was freaking me out. I feel like I've been living under a rock. I actually had no idea it was this bad. I mean, it's little wonder women feel inferior today when they're desperately trying to keep up with something that isn't even real. We've got these ridiculous expectations of beauty, these levels that are so high up, that are so out of this world, that no one can achieve them. Not even 1% of the population looks this way, and there's a very good reason for that. And the reason is to make you feel bad about yourself, to make you feel inferior, like you're not good enough. And when you feel that way, you're more likely to look outside of yourself for something to make you feel happy, make you feel better about yourself. And that usually comes in the form of a product. So they're taking advantage of you in that moment. They're associating pleasure and beauty and sexiness with their product. So you see that image and you're like, oh, I want what she's got. She's amazing. Oh my God, I want to be like that. Why can't I be like that? Why don't I look like that? It's unfair. Look at this woman. She used product X. Now she is flawless. You have many flaws. You are ugly. Bitch, you need this product. So they get you in that headspace of feeling bad about yourself, and guess what? That's when you're the most vulnerable and you're the most likely to buy their product. It keeps the corporate world afloat. You swipe your credit card without a second thought, you get into debt, keeps the banks rich, which keeps you in a job you hate to pay off your debt. You feel bad about your body, so you go start a new fad diet which insists you starve yourself and take weight loss drugs, which keeps the diet and supplement industry rich. And then of course you eventually binge out after your starvation. You binge out on junk food filled with animal products. And then what happens? The meat and dairy industry gets rich. Then you get sick and depressed, and you become dependent on pharmaceuticals, and Big Pharma gets rich. So it goes on and on and on. The cycle repeats itself until you die. That's unless you carve the fuck up and you wise up to this industry bullshit.
Introducing the next revolution in beauty. Get ready to experience a whole new you.
It's you, perfected.
Say goodbye to fine lines and wrinkles and hello to full lips, sparkling eyes, and lashes that never end. And that's just the beginning. Transform your look the way celebrities do with this beauty industry secret that's now available for the first time ever. Introducing Photoshop by Adobe. Finally look the way you've always dreamed. The difference is clear. Just one application of Photoshop can give you results so dramatic, they're almost unrealistic. Use Healing Brush to target blemishes at their source by simply erasing them. ProPixel Intensifying Botanical Hydrojargon Microbead Extract infused with nutritive volumizing technology will leave your face virtually unrecognizable.
That is the type of fear that I am going to be discussing today, with, of course, some illustration.
If any of you know me personally, you probably know that sometimes I can be a little bit too hard on myself, and that's not necessarily like the most easy thing for me to admit, but it really is probably one of the most true things. I have like unreasonable expectations of myself sometimes, And just because I've learned a lot of things, I expect myself to retain all that knowledge at all times and not be a human, almost like a robot. I used to wish I was a robot when I was a kid. It's really weird. But I think it's funny because oftentimes we start to treat ourselves as like less than when we start spiraling in an old pattern. We don't treat ourselves with the kind of compassion that we really deserve because, yes, we're unlearning things. We're learning new ways of being. You know, we're actually rerouting the neural networks of our brain in order to be serving us better, which is, you know, moving in from the fork in the road, you know, moving down a positive path rather than a negative direction, right? And sometimes, just because we've read a lot of books or watched a lot of YouTube videos or, you know, talked to a lot of spiritual people and done a lot of metaphysical training and blah, 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 and of course I'm talking about me here, I think the funniest thing is that when we're in the midst of it and we don't have access to that, like, frequency of knowledge, right? Let me start talking in the I word sense. I don't tend to give myself that leniency of being forgiving to myself.
The Buddha said, "Whoever has done harmful actions but later covers them up with good is like the moon which, freed from the clouds, lights up the world." To begin with, guilt is an emotion, a momentary emotion. It's the indicator that you have done something which you do not want to repeat. The emotion of guilt, in momentary sense, is meant to tell you that you do not wish to repeat something, and that something you did or said is out of line with your higher self. We call this indicator of your internal knowing conscience. Conscience can bring your attention to ways in which you are out of line with your integrity, fighting against your higher self. It can make you aware that you are doing something that is hurtful to yourself or others, or something that is not honoring yourself or the universe at large.
I don't tend to give myself that leniency of being forgiving to myself. I tell everybody else to be forgiving of yourselves and, you know, have compassion and love and gentleness towards yourself, right? But I was really observing myself today, and I noticed that that is sometimes absent from me most of the time. And I was kind of taken aback by that when I actually started paying attention to that.
Conscience, which is a function of the higher self, is absent of regret. It sees every single thing which happens as an integral part of expansion. And yes, even things like the Holocaust. Let's pretend you're in a building. Guilt is like the tear gas which has been released, filling up the building. Regret is how you know that anger and self-blame has entered the building and is preventing you from leaving the building. It's keeping you imprisoned in that tear gas. It's keeping you inside the suffering of that original thing, the tear gas, which was meant to make you go away in the opposite direction of the tear gas. Regret introduces guilt for the things that have happened in the past, which you've already acknowledged are not things that you want to repeat, which is the very purpose of conscience. Once you have acknowledged this, the emotion of guilt serves absolutely no purpose whatsoever. Its only purpose is to help you discern what you would prefer, to discern that what you have done is not in line with what you want to do. Once that step occurs, there is no value in it universally whatsoever.
And I was like, wow, I'm a hypocrite. I am sorry, but this is really challenging stuff sometimes. And I was just faced with myself and how I probably come off as arrogant sometimes because, you know, here I'm saying one thing and living another, and That's not the way it should be. So in all authenticity, I know what it's like. I know it's hard. You have that self-talk going on, and you have all the doubts and all the fears and everything creeping up. And I know that sometimes you don't have access to those resources. You know, it's a freaking hard process to get through, especially when you've been so steeped in a misery paradigm, and you've been so steeped in ways of being that are self-defeating.
It does not keep you moving in the direction of positive change. It keeps you trapped in guilt. We have an issue in English language. Quite often we have a minimal amount of words to convey what we're describing. That's why when we usually use the word guilt, we're not actually referring to the momentary emotion of guilt. So when I am going to talk about guilt throughout this video, I'm not referring to the momentary emotion, which is a function of conscience. I'm not referring to guilt as it stands as this moment, this emotion is indicating that something that I've done or said is out of line with my higher self. When I refer to guilt throughout this video, I'm referring to the self-regulation system of blame and of self-punishment or self-abuse that keeps you locked in this emotion that we call guilt. So it's the regulation of self-blame and self-punishment that I'm going to be calling guilt throughout this video. Step 1 to letting go of guilt is realization. Understand what guilt is. Understand how it begins. Understand what it does. You have to have the realization that it is causing harm and not good before you are able to release guilt. You have to realize that guilt is not serving your highest good. It is self-abuse. Realize that guilt and shame are negative emotions that are fueled by negative thoughts, and they do not help you go in the direction of where you want to go. Step 2. Decide you are ready, wanting, and willing to let go of guilt. As much as guilt may be the one shred of evidence causing you to feel your own goodness, you have to be willing to let go of it because it's doing more harm than it is good. I say this all the time, but we have to be ready and willing to let go of something before we're actually going to let go of it. So that decision is paramount to letting go of guilt.
It's hard. It's fucking hard. I'm not gonna lie, it's just hard. But it helps, you know, so much when you have people around you who can put up with you. To put it frankly, you know, you can read all the self-help books and all the self-development books you want, but ultimately it's relationships that are going to help change you, because it's the relationships that you can fall back on even when you're at your worst. You know, Marilyn Monroe, she said, if you can't love a girl at her worst, you don't deserve her at her best. And I think that that's true with all friendships and everything, you know, because we're all humans and we're all just doing the best we can with the tools that we've been given by society, the things that we've learned from our families, our parents. And anybody who's on a betterment path, you know, anybody who's on a spiritual path, we're all trying to, you know, be more self-aware.
Step 3 is replace the belief that you deserve punishment and you deserve to suffer and that you don't deserve happiness and you don't deserve love with the belief that you deserve to be loved and to be happy. To do this, you can look back at the video which I've made about how to change a belief. Start working on those beliefs. The subject of deserving is really a video in and of itself, and so be on the lookout for that, because I'm going to do a video on deserving in the future. Step 4. Take responsibility only for what is your responsibility in a situation. Taking responsibility is not shame, it is understanding. It is not owning up to the blame for what happened. It's owning up to the responsibility to change in the future. In other words, it's owning up to the responsibility of saying or doing or thinking something differently in the future, and thus changing future events. 5. Take off the rosy-colored sunglasses when you are looking for ways that the past could have been different. Guilt is fueled by looking back on a situation and seeing options that either weren't there or which we had no access to at the time. It's easy to look back on a situation which occurred in the past with the benefit of our current knowledge. I'm going to use an example of someone who I've counseled in the past with guilt to demonstrate what I mean by using rosy-colored glasses to look back at the past. There is a woman I counseled whose husband was an alcoholic. When she puts on her rosy-colored retrospective glasses, she thinks, if only I'd gotten him into treatment, the marriage could have been saved and everything would have been rosy. So she comes to the conclusion that she had obviously been too weak or stupid to get her husband the treatment he needed, and like a bad, bad wife, she is responsible for ending the marriage. And, of course, is responsible for depriving her children of a father. Here is what her rosy-colored retrospective glasses will not let her see. 1. She didn't know that her husband was an alcoholic until they'd been divorced for several years. She just thought that he drank a lot. 2. Even if she had known, her husband would never have consented to treatment at that time. In fact, his willingness to undergo rehab several years later was in no small part due to the fact that he had lost his entire family. In other words, he had to go through this journey on his own at his own pace in order to be ready to release his own pain. Her leaving might have actually saved his life. Looking back, she sees the option of reconciliation. The fact that she had tried again and again to make the marriage work before finally, and only after having exhausted every other option she could think of, decided to leave. That has gotten blocked out by the rosy-colored hindsight glasses. But the truth is that the option of making it work was no longer on the table at the time that she got divorced. When she got her divorce, the idea of therapy was not public. It was something you did only if you were insane or at least completely unable to function in normal society. It was not something which was considered normal for people to do. So, the idea of therapy hadn't even occurred to her at the time. The truth is that the option of therapy, as it stands today, simply didn't exist back then. She is feeling guilty for not choosing options that weren't actually there at the time. She is holding herself responsible for knowing what she didn't know. No one can win with those expectations. The bar is literally unreachable. This is the perfect breeding ground for guilt. Look back at what you're using your rosy-colored sunglasses to see, and start refuting the evidence you've come up with. In other words, look for ways to refute the if-onlys. Apologize to anyone that you feel like you've hurt in the past, especially if this person is yourself. If you offer a sincere apology, that can bring you a long way towards releasing the resistance you have towards your actions and words in the past. It's really hard to let go of guilt when someone else is hurting. So offer a sincere apology where you make it understood what you would have done different had you known what you know now. If the person or animal or thing is not around to apologize to, or if you simply don't feel like you're ready to address them, then you can take a piece of paper out and write down a letter to them expressing your apologies. And then you can go outside somewhere that's safe and you can burn this message. And as you watch it burn, you can reaffirm to yourself, I am ready to let go of this self-punishment and self-blame and move in the direction of something that's different. And state what it is you're ready to move in the direction of. State your new intention.
So with all that said, it's kind of funny because I'm aware of how human I am. And it's not always the easiest thing to come to terms with. Because oftentimes we want to escape our humanness and run away from it. And, try to transcend it, or try to get away from it, or try to ignore it. But this humanness, our anger, our sadness, our frustrations, they're all so tender and they are a part of us, And I feel like they deserve to be met fully. Wherever we're at, you know? Like, today I really learned that there's nothing to feel guilty about. No emotion. No action, really.
Now that I've lost track of the bullet points that we're on, we're back to number 7. So hopefully you can fill in the blanks as to what the previous steps were. I'm sorry I didn't mention the numbers. But step 7 is, make a new plan for how you will do things in your life now and in the future. If you don't have a new plan for how you will behave differently the next time, it's really hard to change your behavior. You might keep making the same mistake over and over again. This is making a subconscious process conscious. Guilt exists to tell you what you would prefer to do or say. And so to make this conscious, you want to really look for what it is that the guilt is telling you that you should do or say. The point of letting go of guilt is not to accumulate more guilt. It's to allow yourself to start fresh with a new perspective. 8. Recognize the value in mistakes. Unless you knew what you don't want, you would not know what you want. Unless you knew what didn't work, you would not know what does work. And so mistakes are incredibly valuable to this universe. The universe would not have a world free of mistakes, because mistakes are integral to the expansion not only of you, but of this universe. When mistakes turn into suffering is when we make mistakes part of blame and self-punishment. We introduce shame and self-punishment into the equation of a mistake instead of understanding and taking it as a lesson.
Whatever we do to somebody else is just a reflection of how we're treating ourselves. And whatever we do to somebody else is we're doing 10 times worse to ourselves. So I just want to leave that with you today, because I've been rambling for a little bit, but I've just come to so many little ahas that I just want to share it all. But you know, it's one of those things where the insights are still percolating and they're still incubating in my mind, and I just feel like a lot of layers of my perception of myself have just kind of dropped today. We have these fixed ideas of who we are and what we look like, and you know, who we are to other people, and we have these fixed set of patterns that we like to operate within in order to get a desired result on the outside world. But what the funny thing is when our subconscious mind peeks through, or you know, some other part of ourself, you know, Freud liked to call it the id, when it starts slipping out and it starts creating its own patterns of behavior, we're used to damnation and condemnation from people. You know, oh, how dare her yell at me, how dare her, she's not supposed to say that, that's wrong, that's bad, that's evil, that's demonic. You know, we're used to being criticized and chastised for these other aspects of ourselves. But when you meet somebody who can embody, you know, unconditioned presence and unconditioned love, that's a powerful thing, because that's godly. You know, that is what it means to love people.
9. Discover all of the assumptions and judgments that you're making based on the situation which is causing you to feel guilt. A lot of times our extreme negative emotion has more to do with the judgments we make about ourselves based on what we feel guilty for than it does the actual guilt. What I mean is this. You could be a person who has stolen something. Now, stealing something, you could feel that momentary pang emotion of guilt, which is causing you to know that stealing things is out of line with your higher self. But what causes you to really suffer as a result of that action is the fact that you're thinking a thought like this. People who steal things are bad people. I have stolen something, which means that I am bad. So the belief that I am bad is really what's causing you that extreme negative emotion. So try to figure out what assumptions and what judgments you're making based on the guilt which you are experiencing given what you have said or done, and take time to shift those beliefs. Those judgments and assumptions about yourself really keep you completely prisoner to the circumstance. They don't allow you to change. We may have done bad things, we may regret them now, and we may vow never to repeat them. But doing those bad things does not mean that we inherently are bad. A person's actions are different than who they really are.
Is to be able to accept them where they're at. And I'm really lucky that I have a really great set of friends that can do that for me, even when I'm feeling, like a hot mess, honestly. This road is a rewarding one, but it's not always the easiest. And so I really commend any of you who can undertake this courageously and compassionately, and any of you who can really do this authentically. Be real with yourselves and others. So, props to you. I love you. Thank you for watching this video. Thank you for watching my ramblings, because this is just my time to just talk to you and connect with you. And I really appreciate you spending the time with me. Those of you who've been watching me for a little while.
10. Guilt is the opposite of self-love. So what should we do if we're trying to dissolve the vibration of guilt? Come up with ways to reinforce the vibration of self-love. Guilt makes us a match to doing more things and meeting more people who reinforce guilt with us. So, what do you do when the self-abusive ego is running the show with guilt? Show yourself love and care and discover how to be your own friend. Look inward and see that you are in need of loving kindness yourself. Counter that self-hate with self-love, whatever that might look like to you. That might look like taking a bath, writing affirmations, doing some mirror work, watching a movie that makes you feel good about yourself, or doing a self-love visualization. If we have problems showing our self-love, it's because we don't think we deserve it. Humans have a problem thinking they deserve anything, because we've been taught that to deserve is to be entitled. So it's understandable if you're trying to show yourself love and you have felt guilty for doing something, that it sort of feels like you're rewarding instead of punishing the bad deed that you have done. But this is not the way that the universe works vibrationally. If you're able to work yourself into a vibration of self-love, you can't do anything. You can't even be inspired towards anything that would cause you to feel guilt or cause you to cause harm on anybody else. So getting yourself into the vibration of self-love is paramount in terms of not making any mistakes that you might feel guilty for later. Step 11. Ironic number, don't you think?
That was funny. I sit down, right, to make this video after a very inspired day. Not necessarily like a happy-dappy, like fun and go lucky kind of inspired day, but just a day where I've had a lot of realizations, right? And the funniest thing just happens. My best friend just calls me like right at 11:11, right as I'm sitting down to make this video to share with you some of the things that I've learned about today. And I'm just laughing and laughing, because this is really funny. Synchronicity all over the place.
Step 11, which is the last step, is to forgive yourself. Understand that every person on this earth always makes the best decision they can, given the perspective, information, and knowledge that they have from where they are. In other words, everyone does what they think is right in the very moment. Because of the way that we are societally told to punish ourselves, we hold guilt for choices we made, given options that did not exist at the time. You cannot judge your past self based on today's expanded perspective. You also can't love yourself and not forgive yourself at the same time. You can't have a happy life and not forgive yourself. To expect to live a happy life while you're holding yourself a prisoner to guilt is the same as saying, no, it's possible to be happy even though I'm beating myself up every day. Forgiveness is the practice of making peace with where you are, thereby releasing you from the bondage which is keeping you from moving forward and from happiness. In true forgiveness, the negative emotion no longer exists. Forgiveness is letting go of what is holding you back once you are aware of it, so you can turn in the direction of what you would prefer, as well as discontinue carrying the past into the present. Every single piece of release and bliss is found in the alteration of the point of view you are holding about a subject. I'm here to tell you today that if you are able to alter your point of view that you are beating yourself up with, there will no longer be something which is beating you up. When you're able to shift your perspective relative to what you're beating yourself up with, there will not be the emotion of guilt present within your reality anymore. So ultimately, the moral of this story is, to release and let go of guilt, you have to shift your perspective relative to past events. Have a good week.
Of course, as you can see, the lower your self-esteem is, the more impact this unnatural, false, societally indoctrinated version of fear has upon you. And, of course, that goes back again to what Hitler was saying about fear in the totalitarian state. And one of the mechanisms that they use against you, of course, besides the educational system, besides, lots of other things that can be named, is mainstream television programming. They call it programming for a reason, Now, for most of the masses, it's really, really, really very simple. It just goes by what Hitler said about, repeating, and then eventually sinks in. And some people say that there's actually a very common way that they do this. Because some people say
that'd be a pretty good choice. Bring in the Hispanic vote. Some people say, he's posturing.
Some people say, and excuse me, I'll get to you, Joe, in just a second, but some people say that you may be setting up Sharpton for a run against Hillary in 2006 in the Senate.
And then, of course, they just go on and on and on and on about terror, roar.
And just really brainwash people.
Either you are with us, or you are with the terrorists.
And just really brainwash people.
Now, there's about 30% or so of the population that are a bit too intelligent for that programming to stick. So, some of us, we take in a bit of it, almost like drinking some bad alcohol, but then we vomit it up and paradigm shift into a massive emotional and psychological hangover. So they need to get a bit more sneaky in their tactics with us. They can't kindergarten us. They need something a bit more sneaky and deceptive and nasty, and a bit more of a cruel joke to play on us. And I'm going to be completely forward about what the cruel joke is that most of us have fallen for.
So, the New World Order, can you confirm or deny it? Both. Yeah, see, things in life are seldom black or white, left or right. If I might be direct and forthright, please, that's what we like. Trust me, you're not gonna like it.
We have before us the opportunity to forge, for ourselves and for future generations, a new world order.
In this period, when really a new world order can be created, it's a great opportunity.
The New World Order is you. What can we do? It's simple. Topple the tyrannus by bringing down the elite dwelling at the very top of the pyramid. You can attempt it, but this structure is your own edifice. Far greater in scale and stature than you care to know or admit it is. It extends down. As you can see in this picture, I've corrected to include all those beneath you on which your privilege has depended. Impossible. We are victims. I'm a victim of the frickin' system. And that, kiddies, is how the pyramid ensures its existence. Through our failures to envision our position within it. Welcome to the New World Order, bitches. I hope I've been of assistance. I need an alibi. I need a projection, sanitize my life. You are my alibi. I need a projection, need a projection.
Please do not fear the Illuminati, so naughty. The globalists are not perfect gods. In fact, a more accurate description would be grown-ass 3-year-old tantruming clods. Please be advised, this is not hearsay. You cannot just wish these people away. 5D you will not earn if you just watch the world burn. Dealing with the new age paradigm. Be the change you want to create. Yes, we can. Don't just lay there and masturbate. Wishing won't let you pass, so get up off your ass. Dealing with the new age paradigm.
From the time we're very young, we're taught to, worship authority basically because that's our key to survival as young children. But as adults, we never go through the rites of passage that tell us how to methodically think for ourselves, and thus we're always in a state of extended adolescence.
Well, we take all this stuff, whether it's the television or it's the enculturation, the schoolyards, the teachers, we take this whole system, we put it into our unconscious mind. And it is the G-I-G-O that comes out, garbage in, garbage out. We simply, in that computer language, have harnessed our own power by accepting all these beliefs as though they are factual. Whether it's the flat earth of Columbus, or it's the idea that I'm not good enough to be or to do something I've dreamed to do.
To the degree that the individual loses the sense of what freedom really means for himself, mind control is working. This is the constant battle and struggle. What does my freedom mean to me? What is it? How deep does it go? How far-reaching is it?
Individuals come already with their rights. They're born with their rights. They're inherent. They're hardwired. They're hardware.
It's tragic. They've lost their sense of the importance of the individual, each individual. We're not animals. We're individuals. We're created in the image of God.
And so what you have is everybody's born into this control structure. Everybody's born into authority. Everyone's born into this situation. But just because you have an authority making decisions for you at some point when you're very young, too young to take care of yourself, doesn't mean you should always cater to authority your whole life.
Fatalism, defeatism, what's all morally called mental slavery. That's this huge thing that he would sing about. How do we emancipate ourselves from mental slavery?
This solar system, you might say, has been in a bubble. The bubble is of energy. It is an astronomical measurement. It is known by science. It is seen. Has its name. As the bubble dissipates and you move into a new area of space, this ribbon of energy that you are now intersecting is different. In fact, it represents high energy. Some would even call it radiation. Your solar system moves into it, firmly into it, and it's the first time that it has ever occurred with humans on the Earth. It takes millions of years for your solar system to make one revolution around the center. You were not here the last time this took place. Here comes the radiation, right on schedule. This is not new information, but now we put it together. The first thing that this radiation intercepts is the largest thing in your solar system, and that's your sun. The sun is a nuclear engine. It has the most energy. And this particular radiation interfaces with your sun, and immediately the sun changes its energy. The sun then blasts this new information within the radiation through the solar wind, or what you call the heliosphere, right to the Earth. Intercepted it is by your magnetic grid. One grid overlaps another. The informational transformation is complete through something called inductance, and now it's in your grid. Review. Whatever the ribbon was carrying in energy is now in your grid. Now, what did we just tell you about the magnetic grid? It communicates to your DNA. Let me tell you what the message is that is being communicated. Unlock to 44%. That is the message. That the race has passed the marker and is ready for the next step. What does it create? The first thing that unlocking this starts to create very slowly is what we're going to call Akashic acuity. What I'm about to tell you is what is changing in energy. So we have established that you're moving into this new radiation. We've established that it intersects the sun intersects your magnetic field, the magnetic field talks to your DNA, and suddenly some of the DNA is being unlocked. You look into the eyes of a child, a current one these days, and you're going to see wisdom just waiting to break out. Dear ones, these children are different. They're not going to go through what you did. They have a whole other set of issues, and most of their issues are trying to navigate old energy you create for them. There's something we brought up called the wisdom factor. Now, the wisdom factor is caused by Akashic acuity. Imagine a child coming into the planet knowing not to touch something hot. Where did it come from? You're going to see more of it. Akashic acuity. As the child grows, that becomes pure wisdom. As the child starts to awaken and the pineal opens, something else happens. The grid starts talking to the child through the DNA. Akashic acuity. Suddenly, you know more than you should. It's going to take a long time. It's happening now. You're going to see this begin to happen. 2015, 2016, 2017, you're going to see it so many places a little. These energies take a long time. They're all going to happen fast and instant. Some of you will be convinced the world is simply still going to a dark place, and you're all going with it. Because you don't see the changes for what they are. You don't understand. We've said it before. When you shine a lot of light in a dark place, the things that were in the dark object. And that's what you're seeing, and you'll see more of it. They were always there. They just didn't have a light on them. Akashic acuity creates wisdom. That wisdom translates into something else, and we're going to try to tell you what it is and how it works. Because you're missing some things, and you don't even know it. How do I present this case? When organisms became more complex, they worked better. More cells together coalesced, communicated, and worked better. Systems became more elaborate and more mature. You end up with the human being who finally has what we would call sentience, that is to say, you're aware that you are here. Awareness of self is one of the first attributes of spiritual intelligence. And here you sit with it. Today you are much higher than those animals just below you. You look into their eyes and you can see emotion and love and you can see intelligence, but they don't know who they are. Not really, not like you do. Your brain is the best one on the planet. And that happened because it got more complex and systems worked together, and they did work together. And here you are. Now why do I tell you this? Because this is not reflected at all socially. Did you ever notice that the larger an organization is, the more dysfunctional it becomes? Now, may I make the point to you that this is exactly the opposite from what has happened over time with cellular structure. There's something missing. Your cells coordinate with each other. One knows what the other is doing. There's a chemical balance, and they all try to balance together. That's the beauty of a system that has coalescence. Coalescence is that which puts together everything so all have the same information and work to the same goal. How can you have trillions and trillions of cells in the human body all working together, living for a long time, cooperating? doing its best to stay alive, and yet you put several hundred people together and they're dysfunctional. And you know I'm right. The larger it is, the worse it works. And then you get into government. I don't have to tell you. It would appear in some cases that the organization is actually stupid because there's too many of them trying to do the same thing. But what is wrong with this picture? Let me tell you, because this is going to change. A new word. I'm going to call it coalescing consciousness. Human beings are going to start having the same kind of attributes your cells enjoy. They'll be connected. They will start to know what the other one is thinking, not personally, not privately, but computationally, intellectually, and cooperate. You'll find something very soon that you never thought could happen. Large organizations starting to function well. We have spoken about a day when there would be managerless corporations. This is all part of it, dear one. Can you imagine a situation where no one is in charge? That can only happen if all of the individuals knew the issues. You see what I'm saying? This, dear ones, is the wisdom factor. Can you imagine how this will affect everything? Let's start at the bottom. Relationships. Business and otherwise. Companies, governments, whatever organization you can think of, start to work together as it should have been from the beginning because of this coalescence consciousness. If consciousness is physics, that means there are rules. It can be changed. You know that radiation that's coming your way? You know that magnetic grid that it's going to hit? All of these are going to start unlocking your DNA, and that is what to expect. You spent a lot of time fighting the old energy, not to enjoy what you paid for. Yeah? Wisdom is evolution. It's not getting smarter, it's getting wiser. The metaphor of all of this is the children in the playground, and it remains that. You really understand this. Kids grow up. You were one of them. Can you remember what it was like in the playground? Do you remember the bullies? Do you remember feeling inadequate, or maybe you were a bully? And you acted out whatever it was you did in your juvenile consciousness, and it changed as you grew up. And as you became adults, you didn't do those things anymore because you knew better, because you were wiser. Now think of humanity that never got out of the playground. Now you are given the tools of the maturity that you've earned. You're not going to have a humanity go into this wisdom as long as they are a warring barbarian humanity. That's all you've done, by the way. You learned how to kill each other better and better through the years. And suddenly, the consciousness is changing to say, this is not what we want. Oh, believe me, there's going to be continuous argument with that. Just like in real life, you realize some of the bullies never grew up. You're seeing some of them on the planet right now. They would love to take this dark energy and just put it right back where it was before and make you afraid. And it's not going to happen that way. But they'll try. And that's what, by the way, is getting the news. And will. Wisdom. Your innate is going to start changing. Innate is the smart body intelligence. That's what you muscle test. The bridge between the corporeal and the innate is missing, and it's going to start being constructed. Let me put this in common terms. You'll eventually be your own medical intuitive. You'll know what's going on in every organ of your body, in every gland. You'll know if there's balance in your blood. Don't you think your brain should let you know that? It knows. It's always trying to balance itself. The only thing it left out is your consciousness. When you start operating at 44, this becomes a reality. This is just the beginning, dear one. Imagine a human being that would know these things, you might look at them and say, they are a super person. How can they have that? Welcome to the future. Peace on earth, and we've said this before, is the beginning. It's a no-brainer, as we would say. It comes with wisdom, does it not? You stop beating yourself up in the playground when you got to be an adult. You didn't see Henry over there and remember he threw a rock as an adult and go beat him up. That's what you did when you were kids, not adults. You had maturity, a little bit of elegance. That's what we are looking at for the planet. That's our prediction. Not right away. We are giving you the ABCs of how this works so that it will be real to you, so that you will understand it's not a magic potion of energy that's going to sweep over the earth and cause peace. It's not. The engine of it comes with your DNA, with your wisdom, with what you decide to do. There will be many who decide to do nothing, and all their lives they'll wonder why nothing works. I've told you over and over, finally, that the human attribute of what you can do about this is what people see in you. Are you always angry? Are you always worried? Part of Akashic wisdom, part of the coalescence, the coherence of consciousness creates a human being who is peaceful. And this is very attractive. Very attractive. You want to go to work, would you rather work with people who are peaceful and mature? Would be great to, every once in a while you'll meet somebody who spins in drama and you say, I haven't seen that in years. There'll come a day when you stop worrying about everything. You stop worrying because you know you're in control. That's working at 44%. Imagine what 90 would look like. You might even have control over physics, like the masters did. That's the energy of the future. That's what's coming. How soon? This is up to you. There are so many things in your favor, even that which happens in your solar system, which creates the energy which you call astrology, points to all of the things that we give you now. There are helps for you. Energy that enhance you, to push you forward with free choice. It's exactly what we told you could happen. And here you are. If we had to take a look at the phases of humanity, and as historians in 500 years will start to look at it, you'll have the barbarian age, which lasted thousands of years up to now. Precession of the equinoxes marked the beginning of a human consciousness that went into maturity. Then there was an age of getting used to it. The potential is there for you to get through this quickly. Dear ones, you have paid a price for this. All of the years, the lifetimes of working this puzzle, and now having the freedom to see the end of that. It takes adjustment. And in the adjustment, a recalibration, finding the new frequencies, getting out of fear. Finally, I will say to you something that I have said over and over, and I want you to hear it again and again and again. The darkness will try to win now that the light has been turned on. They have one tool, which is potent, really potent. It can get to the highest of the high. It can get to the light worker, the healer, the channeler, everybody, if you let it. It's a 4-letter word called fear. If you're afraid, they won. I want you to think about that. They know this. Let your light shine through this so fast, so amazing, that is no longer a 4-letter word. It doesn't even exist. March through these times and remember them, for you've earned them.
Over the course of our lives, as we seek to explain the state of the world, we pass through states of enlightenment that expose the unknown. But the deeper we go, the more our quest seems to lead closer to home. Yes, injustice is real and undeniably abundant. Conspiracies, false flags, oppression, bribery, corruption. But can we fight injustice with any depth of purpose if we ignore our own roles in causing it in the first place? For the target of our struggle is never merely the tyrant on high, but also that piece of the oppressor planted deep inside every one of us. And that's where the revolution first must arise. Till next time, Robert Foster, The Internet. Good night.
Perfect, thank you. If you really want enlightenment, then just lighten up.